Hi, I'm Emily. In this video I will give you my best tips on how to learn how to handstand as an adult. And by that I mean that you are an adult or a young adult and you do not learn how to handstand as a child. I myself started to do a lot of yoga in 2016 at the age of 38, and that same year I learned how to handstand, and I have no background in gymnastics or as a dancer. I was just a regular person who liked working out and found yoga. First thing we're going to do is to warm up our wrists, because most likely you have not spent that much time with your wrists in this angle. Most of us, we work our wrists more like in this angle, so they're going to get like shocked by working in this angle. And in order to just soften that shock a little bit, we're going to just warm up our wrists. So I usually start on all fours and like this, placing my hands underneath my shoulders and spreading. I'm already finding the finger and hand position, so I'm spreading my fingers wide and I'm turning my hand so that the index finger is pointing forward. And I'm pressing firmly down through my fingertips, because my fingertips are my brakes in my handstand. I engage my core and then I turn my palms so that my fingers point out towards the sides of the mat. And then I just start to sway from side to side. I'm going to turn to show you. Just sway from side to side like this. Really lean into the wrists. And then a couple of big circles. I'm just going to show you now quickly. I encourage you to do this at least for a couple of minutes before you start. You can also turn your palms, your hands, so that your palms are facing upward. Press it down. Just bring a little bend in your elbows. Press down. Inhale. Exhale. Sit back towards your heels. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Keep the engagement of your core at all times. I always say that if you want to start with inversions, you need to work your core. So this video is not going to include any core work. It's just going to be instructions of how you kick up to a handstand. But if you really want to get stable in your handstand, you need to work your core in a way that is designed for inversions. So when you're a child, most of us, what we do when we kick into a handstand, do like this, and we throw ourselves down. That's kind of working for me right now, but for most of us, what is going to happen is you get too much speed and you fall out to the other side. The other mistake I see people do is when they kick up from here, they start in this kind of position with your hands in front of you and your shoulders a bit further back. And then they use the top leg to swing your legs up, meaning you're not leading with your hip, you're leading with your leg, and you end up in some sort of a banana position. So what you're going to do is you're going to lean forward, making sure that your hands are just underneath your shoulders. You really need to dare to lean in and press down. As I said before, fingertips are your brakes. Then you're going to lift the top leg. You're going to find one leg is easier than the other to kick up with. This leg is super active. And then you bend your standing leg. You come up to the toes, bend your standing leg, and then you kick up. And you find some air time. Kick up, leading with the hip. Finding your handstand. Gaze is in between your hands. And then you can try to control the weight out. So what's really important here is weight over your hands from the start. The top leg is not the one leading this activity. The bottom leg is the kicking leg. You're leading with your hip, kicking up. And as I kick up, press down. Really pressing through my hands, pressing my fingertips down. But of course, kicking up in the center of the room is going to feel scary in the beginning. So I encourage everybody to start at the wall, but don't get stuck at the wall, because eventually you need to move out away from the wall and start to practice in the center of the room. Then you just need to have your fall out strategy clear. So when we start at the wall, this is also where I encourage you to film yourself, because then you can see what you're doing. I encourage you to use maybe about the length of your forearm as the distance from the wall. And again, place your fingers, index fingers pointing forward. And then you have to just find your width, usually shoulder width. I usually sometimes have a little bit wider. You have like the gymnasts, they have very tight position, and the CrossFit guys have a wider. I'm a yogi, so I have somewhere in between. Maybe it's just slightly wider than my shoulders. My forearm distance to the wall. Set it up just as before, maybe kick up with the other leg. Sometimes it's good to practice. You usually have one good kick up leg. Straight out, activate the glute, squeeze the core, kind of round the back slightly when you kick up. So you don't kick up like this, then you're gonna get into the banana back. So round the back slightly, bend the standing leg, kick up to the wall, find the wall. And as you do, you can lower one sole of one foot to the wall. Because when you do, if you put both legs to the wall, it's easy to end up in the banana back. Then you put one sole of the foot to the wall, and the other one is away from the wall. Knees together, squeeze your legs, press them out away, gaze in between your hands, and press your hips forward a bit. This will give you a good line. And then you can just practice to release those toes. And you see it when I do, my fingertips start to work. And you can lower. And as I said, it's really important learning how to fall out of your handstand. So I encourage you to learn how to cartwheel out of your handstand. I'm going to show you what that means. We all know what a cartwheel is. Maybe I can do one here. See if I can go all the way. Cartwheel away from out of the camera. So that is what you do when you fall out of a handstand. You kind of kick up to your handstand. I'm just going to kick up like this. And then when you fall out, you're just going to turn to one side and cartwheel out of it. And you can learn this by starting at the wall with your butt to the wall and climbing your feet up against the wall, maybe climbing your hands in a bit, and then you lean out and you just go to one side. You can also use, sometimes when you fall out really heavily, you need to shift the weight and take one hand forward. Let's see if we can do that with the wall. Come up, gaze forward, falling out, maybe stepping out. So learn how to cartwheel out of your handstand. Then you might dare taking it to the center of the room and start working with finding your balance. I also want to encourage you to try different leg variations, because finding that straight line, straight from the start, it's difficult. That is like the most difficult handstand position. And then when you find a pretty straight line, you just want to keep working on getting it straighter. So don't be obsessed with the straight line. You cannot get the straight line until you have found balance and stability in your handstand. So don't worry about your banana back. Just find balance and play with it and have fun. And I'm going to show you a couple of leg variations that I find is quite good to start practicing with. I'm going to start with the L-shaped legs. So find your starting position, active back leg, bend the first one, kick up, and then you start to just hang out in this L variation. One leg straight up and one leg straight out. You can see if we can just do them and go down. The other one is the half tuck leg variation. Both of these really work well as like core workouts, and then when you just wanted to play around with your handstand and just practice it and finding the balance and finding the activity in your fingertips. So the half tuck, find position, kick up,
tuck one leg in, and go down. And then you can switch legs, one leg in, and go down.
The third one is the stagger leg position.
It includes some sort of a back bend, so make sure that you are warmed up for that. You kick one up, and then you like stagger the legs. This one is it lowers
your center of gravity, so it's easier to find your balance. I also want to show you one of my favorite exercises, the switch leg exercise that I use when I'm short on time and I need to warm up my entire body quickly. And it's also great when you start to work towards a handstand, and it's a great way to find some airtime in your handstand.
So let's set it up as before. Lean into it, activate shoulders, fingertips, squeeze the core, round the back slightly, kick it up, and then switch the legs at the top. So I kick up with one, and then I lower. As I said, this really gets your heart pumping. They are great.
Another one of my favorite exercises is tuck jumps. And usually I set them up from a shorter downward facing dog. They're excellent to do when you're in your yoga practice, for example.
So let's come to a shorter downward facing dog. Press the mat away through your hands. Gaze in between your fingertips and prepare your shoulders. Prepare your fingertips. Inhale high up on your toes. Bend your knees, squeeze your core, and just kick it up. Heel to glutes. And then eventually you can do them as small as you want. And then eventually you get some more air time. And then eventually you might stick in a handstand. You can also do the tuck jumps in a pike. Set it up the same way. This time we're going to keep the legs straight. Inhale, high up on your toes, bend, and then go to straight legs and lower. Bend, straight legs, lower.
I know I promised that there would be no strength exercises in this video, but I really want to show you my favorite exercise for building strength and working towards the handstand. It's also a great way to start to lean over your shoulders, lean your hips over your shoulders, which is really important that you dare, otherwise you will always have the banana back and it's really hard to find balance. So it's the L stand against the wall. So just prepare by setting it up, measuring the length of your legs to the wall, so your feet are flexed. Then you place your hands just by your glutes and you turn around. Find your hand position, squeeze your core, and just start to climb your feet up the wall. And then you gaze towards your feet, or you gaze down, whatever feels good on your neck. And then you squeeze your core, maybe you can go down even more. And this is also a good way when you film yourself. You most likely, it's going to feel that you are in 90 degrees with your feet, but when you film it, you're going to see that you're like this. So dare to walk down. Dare to lean in over your shoulders, and then maybe you can let one foot go. Eventually, you can let both feet go and find your handstand. And you just climb down. Remember, doing a handstand for most people doesn't come easily. It takes a lot of practice. It's like with anything else you want to learn, whether it's playing the guitar or, I don't know, learning a new language. It takes time, and if you decide to practice once every 2 weeks, it's gonna take a lot of time. I want to encourage you to practice maybe 5 to 10 minutes every day, just doing your handstand practice. And that includes like a short wrist warm-up, which is really important. Because remember, if you push too hard and you practice too much, you will really strain your wrists, and that will just then stop you from being able to practice, and you will just have a huge setback. I also want to encourage you to film your practice. from different angles, because once you get up into your handstand, you're gonna find that it's kind of hard to figure out what is actually your front body and your back body as you're up there, because when you start, this is your front, and then when you're upside down, which is that the front, or yeah, you get it. And it's also a really good way to start to see what you do in your body, because you will find that you do a lot of weird stuff when you're upside down. I also want to encourage you to take rest days, because what you're doing when you're doing your handstand, you build muscle memory, and that needs to be built during rest. So if you practiced every day for, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks, and then you take a couple of rest days, you will most likely find that after those rest days, you will have developed so much, because your body learns and figure out things while you rest. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, don't forget to press subscribe and leave a comment below on how your handstand journey is evolving. I'm really curious to hear about it. Namaste.